I thought the worst day of my life was when my fated mate rejected me. I was wrong. The worst day was when his pack alpha forced me to wear this ridiculous dress and stand beside him as he married her. The lilac fabric clung to my skin like a shroud, each ruffle and bow a calculated insult. Lycan hadn't just rejected me 6 months ago. He'd kept me in the pack, relegated to the lowest ranks, a living reminder of his superiority. And now this. Standing 3 feet from him as he pledged forever to Marcella, her triumph radiating off her like expensive perfume. Do you, Lycan Ashford, take this woman? The chapel doors didn't open. They exploded. The concussive force sent the ancient oak panels spinning through the air like leaves. Every candle in the cathedral guttered at once. The ground itself trembled, and a scent flooded the space, pine and winter storms and something ancient, something that made my wolf lift its head for the first time in months. Wolves dropped to their knees, the officiant, the groomsmen, even Lycan wavered, his face draining of color. Marcella's perfectly painted lips parted in a silent gasp as she sank, her designer gown pooling around her like spilled cream. I remained standing. He filled the doorway like a force of nature-given form, easily 7 feet of corded muscle wrapped in fur-trimmed leather and battle-worn armor. His hair was black as a moonless night, his eyes the amber of predator gleam. But it was the raw power emanating from him that stole the air from the room, an alpha unlike anything I'd ever encountered. Those amber eyes swept the frozen congregation and locked on me. Only me. Mine, he growled, the single word reverberating through my bones. Not a question, not a request. A statement of absolute truth that my wolf recognized even as my mind scrambled to catch up. He stalked down the aisle, each footfall deliberate, unstoppable. Lycan tried to stand to speak, but the giant's gaze flicked to him once, just once, and my former mate crumpled like paper. The stranger stopped before me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. Up close, I could see the scars, the silver streaks at his temples, the weight of centuries in his gaze. I am Titus, he said, his voice gentler now but no less commanding. And you, little wolf, are coming with me. The journey to the mountain territories passed in a blur of pine forests and winding roads that climbed ever higher into mist-shrouded peaks. Titus had wrapped me in his cloak, a massive thing that smelled of him and swallowed me whole, before carrying me out of that chapel like I weighed nothing. No one had tried to stop him. Lycan had remained on his knees, and Marcella's shrieks had faded to nothing as we disappeared into the night. I should have fought, should have demanded explanations, protested something, but my body had simply shut down, overloaded by too many emotions crashing through me at once. Relief, terror, confusion, and underneath it all something else, a humming recognition in my bones that intensified the closer I stayed to him. Now, sitting in the passenger seat of a vehicle built for someone twice my size, I finally found my voice. Where are you taking me? Home, Titus said simply, his hands steady on the wheel as we navigated a switchback that would have terrified me if I had the energy for more fear. My territory. You'll be safe there. Safe from what? You just kidnapped me from a wedding. Rescued, his jaw tightened. There's a difference. Is there? My fingers twisted in the fabric of his cloak. You walked in, declared me yours, and took me. That sounds like kidnapping. He was quiet for a long moment, and I thought maybe I'd angered him. When Lycan went quiet, it meant violence was coming. But Titus just exhaled slowly, like he was choosing his words with care. You're right, he said finally. I should have asked, should have approached this differently, but if I'd waited another moment, if I'd let that ceremony finish. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. I've watched you suffer for 6 months, Frostine, felt every moment of your pain like it was my own. I couldn't let it continue. You don't even know me. I know you're my mate. I know your wolf has been caged and starved. I know that pack was killing you slowly, piece by piece. He glanced at me then, and the intensity in those amber eyes made my breath catch. And I know that if you truly want to leave once we arrive, I'll take you anywhere you wish to go. You have my word. I didn't know what to say to that. Lycan had never given me choices, had never asked what I wanted. The vehicle climbed higher, and eventually the paved road gave way to packed earth. We passed through a gate marked with symbols I didn't recognize, ancient pack wards, older than anything in Lucian's territory. The trees here were different too, massive evergreens that seemed to touch the sky, their branches heavy with snow despite it being early autumn in the valley below. Then I saw it, not a compound or a mansion like Lucian's ostentatious estate, but a village. Actual houses built into the mountainside, smoke curling from stone chimneys, lights glowing warm in windows. Wolves moved through the streets, some in human form, some shifted, going about evening routines with an ease that spoke of community, not hierarchy. Titus pulled up to a large lodge at the village's center. Before I could reach for the door handle, he was there, opening it, offering his hand. I ignored it and climbed out myself, my legs unsteady after hours of driving. The air hit me first, so clean it almost hurt, sharp with pine and snow and stone. Then the wolves appeared. Not threatening, not submissive, just curious. They kept a respectful distance, watching this stranger their alpha had brought home. "Everyone," Titus's voice carried across the clearing, gentle but commanding. "This is Frostine. She's under my protection. She's to be given space, respect, and anything she needs. Anyone who makes her uncomfortable will answer to me personally." A woman emerged from the lodge, older than me, with silver threading through her dark hair and kind eyes that crinkled at the corners. "Poor thing looks ready to collapse. Come on, dear. Let's get you settled before the men start hovering like oversized puppies." I found myself being gently shepherded inside, away from Titus's overwhelming presence. The lodge was warm, all wood and stone and soft furs, so different from Lucian's cold marble halls. The woman, she introduced herself as Vera, the pack's healer, led me up a staircase to a room that took my breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the mountain valley. A fire crackled in a stone hearth. The bed was enormous, piled with furs and blankets that looked impossibly soft. And there was a bathroom attached with a tub big enough to swim in. This is too much," I whispered. "This is the Alpha's suite," Vera said matter-of-factly, setting down towels. "Titus had it prepared for you. He's been sleeping in the barracks." "What? No, I can't." "He insisted." She smiled at my confusion. "Our Alpha is not like the ones in the Southern Territories, child. He leads through strength, yes, but also through service. Now, there's food being brought up, and I suspect you'd like a bath. Those wedding clothes look dreadfully uncomfortable." She wasn't wrong. The lilac dress felt like it was strangling me, but as Vera moved toward the door, panic fluttered in my chest. "Wait, what happens now? What does he expect from me?" Vera paused, her expression softening. "He expects nothing, hopes perhaps that you'll heal, that you'll let him prove the mate bond is real, but expects only that you take the time you need." She squeezed my shoulder gently. "You're not a prisoner here, Frostine. You're not even an obligation. You're his mate, yes, but more than that, you're a wolf who deserves to remember what it's like to be free." After she left, I stood in the center of that beautiful room, still wrapped in Titus's cloak, trying to process everything. This couldn't be real. Alphas didn't just give up their rooms. Packs didn't treat strangers with kindness. And mates certainly didn't offer freedom. In Lucian's world, being claimed meant being owned. Your purpose was to serve, to elevate, to be decorative and silent and grateful for whatever scraps of attention you received. Even before the rejection, even when we were supposedly fated, I'd been more possession than partner. But Titus had carried me out of that chapel and then let me go, had driven me to safety and offered choices, had given me his room and taken nothing in return. A knock at the door made me jump. A young wolf entered with a tray of food, real food, not the leftovers I'd grown accustomed to, and set it on a table by the fire. He couldn't have been more than 16, all gangly limbs and shy smiles. "Alpha Titus says to eat if you're hungry, but don't force it if you're not," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "And he wants you to know he'll be in the Great Hall if you need anything, but he won't disturb you unless you ask for him." "Thank you," I managed. The boy grinned, ducking his head. "It's really nice to meet you, Miss Frostine. The Alpha's been different since he knew about you. Lighter somehow. We're glad you're here." He left before I could respond, and I found myself sinking into the chair by the fire, staring at the food. Roasted meat, fresh bread, vegetables that actually looked appetizing. My stomach growled, and I realized I hadn't eaten since yesterday. Lucian's pack hadn't wanted to waste food on the help. I ate slowly, mechanically, my mind spinning. Through the windows, I could see the village below, wolves gathering for evening meals, children playing in the snow. It looked like something from a dream, too good to be real. My wolf stirred inside me, stronger than it had felt in months. It wanted to go to him, to find Titus and understand this bond he claimed we shared. But I was terrified. Terrified of trusting again, of believing this could be different, of hopping for something better only to have it snatched away. The bath called to me, and I finally stripped off the hateful lilac dress, leaving it in a heap on the floor like a shed skin. The hot water was heaven, washing away the chapel's incense and Marcella's perfume, and the feeling of Lucian's eyes on me during that ceremony. When I finally emerged, wrapped in a robe that was too big but impossibly soft, exhaustion pulled at me like a riptide. I climbed into the massive bed, and despite everything, the chaos, the fear, the uncertainty, I fell asleep within moments. For the first time in 6 months, I didn't dream of rejection and humiliation. I dreamed of amber eyes and winter storms, and a voice that called me mine. I woke to angry voices echoing through the lodge. For a disoriented moment, I thought I was back in Lucian's pack house, where raised voices meant someone was about to be punished. My heart hammered as I sat up, the furs sliding off my shoulders. Then I remembered. The mountains, Titus, freedom or something close to it. Sunlight streamed through the massive windows, painting the room gold. I'd slept deeply, dreamlessly, and my body felt more rested than it had in months. But those voices, one of them was familiar in the worst way. I dressed quickly in clothes someone had left folded on a chair. Simple things, soft and warm, nothing like the restrictive garments Lucian's pack had forced on me. As I descended the stairs, the voices grew clearer. Violation of territorial law and common decency. That was Marcella, her tone pitched perfectly between righteous anger and wounded innocence. That poor, disturbed girl needs help, not to be indulged in her delusions by some northern barbarian. "Watch your tongue." Titus's voice was quiet, but it carried a warning that made my wolf bristle in response. "You're guests here by my sufferance. That can change." I reached the great hall and stopped in the doorway, taking in the scene. Titus stood near the fireplace, arms crossed, radiating barely contained fury. Vera was beside him, along with several other wolves I didn't recognize, his inner circle, probably. And there, in the center of the room like she owned it, stood Marcella. She looked perfect, as always. Her honey blonde hair cascaded in artful waves, her makeup flawless despite the long journey. She wore a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than I'd earned in a year of servitude, and she carried herself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no. Behind her stood 3 wolves in formal diplomatic attire, the envoy she'd brought to legitimize her presence. And Lucian. He lurked at the back, his handsome face carefully neutral, but I could see the calculation in his eyes. Marcella's gaze found me, and her expression shifted to concern so perfectly performed I almost believed it. "Frostine, oh, thank the goddess. We've been so worried about you." Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to make myself small. That's what I would have done a week ago. But something had changed. Maybe it was the sleep, or the kindness Vera had shown me, or the way Titus had offered me choices instead of commands. Whatever it was, I found myself walking into the room instead of retreating. "Have you?" My voice came out steadier than I expected. "How considerate." Marcella's smile wavered for just a fraction of a second. "Of course we have. When that man stormed into our wedding and took you, we feared the worst. Lucian wanted to come immediately, but the pack elders advised caution. We didn't know what we were dealing with." "A kidnapping," one of the envoy wolves interjected smoothly. He was older, silver-haired, with the kind of face that had spent decades in politics. The unlawful seizure of a pack member during a sacred ceremony, most irregular. Titus's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. His eyes flicked to me, a silent question in them. He was letting me handle this. The realization was staggering. I wasn't kidnapped, I said. Frostine, sweetie, I know this must be confusing for you. Marcella took a step toward me, her voice dripping with false sympathy. After everything you've been through, the rejection, the unfortunate circumstances that followed, it's understandable that you might latch onto the first person who showed you attention. Don't, the word came out sharp. Don't do that, don't pretend you care. I know you're hurting. You made me stand at your wedding, in that ridiculous dress. You made me watch while you married I caught myself. While you married Lycan. If you cared about my well-being, you could have just let me stay in the kitchens where I belonged. Marcella's mask slipped, just for a moment. Something cold and vicious flashed in her eyes before the concern returned. You weren't thinking clearly, Frostine. That's why we're here, to help you. We've arranged for treatment at the Silverwood Sanctuary. They specialize in wolves who have experienced trauma, rejection, mental instability. She's not unstable. Titus's voice cut through the room like a blade. And she's not going anywhere she doesn't choose to go. The silver-haired envoy cleared his throat. With all due respect, Alpha Titus, this is a delicate matter. Miss Frostine was a member of the Ashford Pack when you removed her from their territory. Regardless of your claims of a mate bond, there are protocols, legal frameworks. You can't simply take another pack's wolves. She was being abused. That's a serious accusation, the envoy said stiffly. Do you have proof? Look at her. Titus gestured toward me, and I felt heat rise to my cheeks as everyone's attention focused on me. She's malnourished. There are scars on her hands from kitchen work, marks on her wrists from clumsiness, Marcella interrupted smoothly. Frostine has always been accident-prone. Haven't you, dear? It's part of why we worried about her stability. The lie was so smooth, so perfectly delivered, that I could see the envoy considering it. This was what Marcella did best, rewrite reality until everyone believed her version of events. Lycan finally spoke, his voice carefully measured. Frostine, please, come home. We can work through this. The rejection was difficult, I know, but running away with a stranger isn't the answer. Whatever this alpha has told you about mate bonds, it's not real. What we had was real. Something inside me snapped. What we had? Lycan, you rejected me in front of the entire pack. You called me weak, unworthy, an embarrassment to your bloodline. Then you kept me as a servant while you paraded your new relationship around. You forced me to clean your house, serve your meals, and finally to stand at your wedding. What part of that was real? His face flushed. I was trying to be kind, letting you stay in the pack. Kind, the word came out as a laugh, sharp and broken. You were being cruel. You wanted to keep me close enough to prove you'd made the right choice, to show everyone how much better Marcella was than me. Every day was a reminder that I wasn't enough. Frostine, you're being hysterical. No. Titus moved then, placing himself between me and Lycan with a fluidity that belied his size. You're done, all of you. You came here with lies and manipulation, trying to gaslight her into believing she's the problem. I've heard enough. This isn't over, Marcella said, her composure cracking around the edges. We have rights, pack law. Pack law protects wolves from abuse, Vera interjected, speaking for the first time. I've examined Frostine. Chronic malnutrition, stress fractures in her ribs that healed poorly, signs of prolonged psychological trauma. I've documented everything. The envoy wolves exchanged glances. This was getting messy, political, not the simple retrieval they'd expected. Marcella's mask finally fell away completely, revealing the vicious calculation beneath. You can't hide behind fabricated medical reports forever. Everyone knows what you are, Frostine. You're an obsessed, delusional Omega who couldn't accept that she wasn't wanted. You latched onto Lycan, and when that didn't work, you threw yourself at the first alpha who gave you attention. Enough. Titus's voice dropped to a growl that made the windows rattle. You have 10 minutes to leave my territory. If you're not gone, I'll remove you myself. The council will hear about this, the silver-haired envoy said coldly, harboring another pack's member against their will. She can speak for herself. Titus looked at me, his amber eyes intense. Tell them, Frosting, what do you want? Everyone was staring at me. Marcella with barely concealed rage. Lucian with something that might have been regret or might have been wounded pride. The envoy wolves with professional skepticism. And Titus waiting, not pressuring, just waiting. I thought about the lilac dress, the kitchen where I'd worked until my hands bled, the small room in the servants' quarters that had been my prison, the look on Lucian's face when he'd told the pack I wasn't worthy to be his Luna. Then I thought about waking up in Titus's room, wrapped in soft furs, safe, about Vera's gentle kindness, about a village where wolves smiled at each other instead of calculating hierarchy, about a man who'd given me his bed and asked for nothing in return. I want to stay, I said clearly. I choose to stay here, with Titus. This is where I belong. Marcella's face contorted with fury, but before she could speak, Titus gestured to his wolves. Escort them to the border. If they return without official council summons, consider it an act of aggression. As they were herded toward the door, Marcella turned back, her voice venomous. This isn't over, Frosting. You're making a mistake you'll regret. He'll throw you away too once he realizes what you really are. Worthless. Broken. Nothing. The words hit like physical blows, landing in all the places I was still wounded. But then Titus was there, his hand gentle on my shoulder, his presence solid and real. Get out, he said softly, but the command in it was absolute. When they were gone, when the great hall was finally empty except for Titus's inner circle, I found I was shaking. Not from fear, but from the effort of standing my ground, of choosing myself for the first time in my life. You did well, Titus said quietly. I'm proud of you. And despite everything, despite Marcella's poison and Lucian's presence, and the knowledge that this was far from over, I felt something unfurl in my chest. Hope. The trembling didn't stop even after Marcella's convoy disappeared down the mountain road. I stood at the window of the great hall, watching until the last vehicle became a speck against the snow, my arms wrapped tight around myself like I could hold all my broken pieces together through sheer force of will. You should eat something, Vera said gently, but I shook my head. The thought of food made my stomach turn. Titus had retreated to the far side of the room, giving me space, but I could feel his attention on me like a physical touch. Finally, he spoke. Walk with me. It wasn't a command, just an invitation. I found myself nodding before I'd fully decided, and he led me out a side door into the crisp mountain air. The village was alive with afternoon activity. Children played in the snow, their laughter carrying on the wind. Wolves in various forms moved between buildings, some carrying firewood, others engaged in what looked like combat training in a cleared area. No one stared at us, but I felt the awareness, the curiosity. Titus led me up a trail that wound away from the village, into the forest where the massive evergreens created a cathedral of green and shadow. We walked in silence for several minutes, just the crunch of snow under our boots and the distant call of ravens. I'm sorry, he said finally, for what she said, for bringing all that to your doorstep. It's not your doorstep, it's yours. I don't even know what I am here. The words tumbled out before I could stop them. You keep calling me your mate, but I don't understand. Lucian was supposed to be my mate. Everyone said so. The pack elders confirmed it, and look how that turned out. We reached a clearing where a fallen log provided a natural bench overlooking the valley below. Titus gestured for me to sit, then settled beside me, careful to maintain a respectful distance despite the log's limited space. What do you know about mate bonds? He asked. I laughed bitterly. Apparently nothing. I thought I knew, thought I felt it with Lucian, that pull, that recognition. But it was easy for him to reject, so maybe it was never real. It might not have been. Titus's voice was thoughtful, measured. Tell me, when did you first recognize Lucian as your mate? When I turned 18. The pack elders brought us together for the ceremony, and when I saw him, I felt something like a thread connecting us. The memory tasted like ash in my mouth now. And before that, I frowned. Before that, we barely knew each other. He was the alpha's son, training with the elite wolves. I was nobody. Why? Because true mate bonds don't need ceremonies or confirmations. They don't wait for convenient timing or pack politics. He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his amber eyes made my breath catch. They hit you like lightning, frosting, undeniable, inescapable, from the first moment. That's not what happened with Lycan. No, it's not. He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. There are different types of bonds. Proximity bonds, formed when young wolves are pushed together by pack hierarchy and expectation. They can feel real, especially if both parties want them to be. But they're fragile, easy to break when something better comes along or when politics require it. You're saying what I felt wasn't real. I'm saying it wasn't a true mate bond. Those are rare, frosting, precious, and they can't be forced or manufactured or broken by choice. His hand moved, hesitating, then settled on the log between us, close but not touching. When you meet your true mate, your wolf knows. It's not a gentle pull. It's a certainty that rewrites everything you thought you understood about the world. I stared at his hand, at the scars marking his knuckles, the calluses that spoke of hard use. Is that what you felt when you saw me? No. His answer startled me into meeting his gaze. I felt it before I ever laid eyes on you. What? He exhaled slowly, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked uncertain, vulnerable. It started 6 months ago. Dreams at first, fragments, your face, your voice, emotions that weren't mine, fear, pain, resignation. I thought I was losing my mind. Ancient alphas don't have prophetic dreams. That's fantasy. But they continued. They intensified. Every night I'd dream of you, feel what you felt. The rejection happened, and it was like someone drove a knife between my ribs. I felt your heart break, Frosting, felt the moment you wanted to stop existing. His voice roughened, and I didn't even know your name. I couldn't breathe, couldn't process what he was telling me. I started searching, sent scouts, contacted other packs, tried to track the dream's source. It took weeks to narrow it down to Ashford territory, longer to identify you. By then, you'd been relegated to servant status. I watched from a distance, trying to understand what was happening, why I was connected to a wolf I'd never met. Why didn't you just take me then? Because I had no right. His hand clenched into a fist. You didn't know me, had no reason to trust me. For all you knew, I could have been another Lycan, another wolf looking to use you. I told myself I'd wait, give you time to heal, approach this properly. But you didn't wait. No, the word came out like gravel. Because the dreams got worse. Every night I felt your despair deepen, felt you fatting piece by piece. And then I learned about the wedding, that they were making you stand there, watch him marry her, endure that final humiliation. His eyes met mine, burning with emotion. I couldn't. I know it was selfish, reckless, possibly insane, but I couldn't let you suffer another moment when I had the power to stop it. My mind reeled, so you just decided I was yours. That's not better than Lycan claiming me. It's the same thing, someone else making choices about my life. You're right. He didn't argue, didn't deflect. That's why I told you then, and I'll tell you now. If you want to leave, I'll take you anywhere. If you want to reject this bond, I'll accept it. It will destroy me, but I'll accept it. Because real mates don't trap each other. They choose each other freely or not at all. How can I choose something I don't understand? You're asking me to believe in this bond, but I believed in a bond before. I trusted what I felt with Lycan, and I was wrong. How do I know this isn't the same mistake? You don't, he admitted. Not yet, but the difference is this. What you felt with Lycan was gentle enough that doubt could creep in, weak enough that rejection could shatter it. What I feel for you. He finally moved his hand, placing it palm up on the log, an offering, not a demand. It's not gentle, it's not fragile. It's the absolute certainty that you are the other half of my soul, and that truth exists whether you feel it yet or not. I looked at his hand, so much larger than mine, scarred and strong. I don't feel what you feel. I don't have dreams. I don't have certainty. I know. The understanding in his voice made my throat tight. The bond can be one-sided at first, especially when one wolf has been as damaged as you've been. Lucian's rejection, the manufactured bond, they've blocked your ability to sense what's real. But it's there, Frostine. I know you feel something, even if you don't recognize it yet. He was right, and that terrified me, because there was something. Had been since the moment he'd walked into that chapel, a recognition deeper than thought, a pull that had nothing to do with pack politics or convenient timing. When he'd wrapped me in his cloak, I'd felt safe for the first time in months. When he'd told Marcella to leave, my wolf had practically purred with satisfaction. But admitting that meant risking everything again, meant trusting when trust had nearly destroyed me. I need time, I whispered. I need to figure out what I feel without everyone else telling me what I should feel. Take all the time you need. He slowly closed his hand and withdrew it. I've waited centuries for you. I can wait a little longer. Centuries? I blinked at him. You're ancient. You could have any wolf you wanted. Why would you want someone like me? Someone broken and weak and... Stop! The command in his voice made me fall silent. You are not broken. You are not weak. You survived months of systematic abuse and still had the strength to stand up to them today. You chose yourself, Frostine. Do you have any idea how rare that is? How powerful? Tears burned in my eyes. I don't feel powerful. I feel terrified. Of you, of this, of hopping for something better and having it ripped away. Then don't hope yet. Just stay live here. Let my pack show you what it's like to be valued. Let yourself heal. And when you're ready, if you're ever ready, we'll explore what this bond means together. He stood, offering me a hand up. No pressure, no expectations, just time and space and the truth that I will wait for you as long as it takes. I stared at his offered hand, this simple gesture that meant so much. Taking it felt like stepping off a cliff, trusting that something would catch me. But staying frozen felt like dying slowly. I placed my hand in his. His fingers closed around mine, gentle and warm, and something sparked between us. Not the manufactured warmth I'd felt with Lucian, but something wild and electric and utterly terrifying. My wolf surged forward with a certainty I couldn't deny. Mine, it whispered, ours, home. I pulled my hand back, stumbling away from the overwhelming sensation. I need to go back. I need to think. Of course. He didn't follow as I hurried back down the trail, didn't push or demand. He simply let me run. But as I fled back to the village, I could still feel where his hand had touched mine, burning like a brand. And I wondered if true mate bonds weren't about gentle pulls at all. Maybe they were about lightning strikes. And maybe I'd just been hit. I avoided Titus for 3 days after our conversation in the woods. Not because I wanted to, but because every time I saw him across the village square or caught his scent on the mountain wind, that spark threatened to ignite into something I wasn't ready to name. Vera didn't push. She brought meals to my room, checked my healing ribs with gentle hands, and told me stories about the pack's history. About how Titus had built this place as a sanctuary for wolves who didn't fit the Southern Territory's rigid hierarchies. Omegas who'd been discarded. Betas deemed too weak. Even a few alphas who'd rejected the brutality their packs demanded. He collects broken things, Vera said one morning as she changed the dressing on cuts I'd forgotten I had. Not to keep them broken, but to show them they never were. On the 4th day, I woke before dawn with energy humming through my veins. Not nervous energy, but something else. Something that demanded movement. My wolf paced restlessly inside me, stronger than it had felt in. I couldn't remember how long. I dressed and slipped out of the lodge before anyone else stirred. The village was silent, blanketed in fresh snow that crunched under my boots. I walked without direction, just letting my feet carry me until I found myself at the training grounds I'd seen from a distance. Someone was already there. A woman moved through combat forms with deadly grace, her movements fluid despite her size. She was nearly as tall as Titus, built like a warrior, with dark skin and silver-white hair braided down her back. Scars crisscrossed her bare arms. She wore only a training vest despite the cold, and her eyes were the pale blue of glacier ice. She noticed me watching and stopped mid-form. You're the new one, Frostine. I didn't mean to interrupt. You didn't. She grabbed a towel, wiping sweat from her face. I'm Kira, baiter of this pack and general keeper of order when Titus is being too soft. She said it with affection, not criticism. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, too much energy. Her pale eyes sharpened with interest. Show me your wolf. What? Shift, let me see her. When I hesitated, she softened slightly. I'm not testing you or judging you, I just want to see something. The request should have terrified me. In Lucian's pack, showing your wolf meant exposing weakness, inviting comparison and inevitable disappointment. But something in Kira's directness, the absence of games or hidden agendas, made me trust her. I let the shift take me. It had been months since I'd allowed my wolf full control. The transformation usually hurt, my body reluctant, my wolf too beaten down to emerge properly. But this time, it flowed like water. One moment I was standing on 2 legs, the next I was on 4, my senses exploding with new information. The world sharpened into crystalline focus. I could smell everything, the pack, the forest, the approach of dawn. Hear the heartbeat of small creatures in the underbrush. Feel the earth beneath my paws, solid and real. And I was bigger, stronger. My wolf had always been small, undernourished, a reflection of how Lucian's pack had treated me. But now I felt the muscle in my haunches, the power in my jaw. I shook out my fur and found it thick and healthy, silver-white like fresh snow. Holy shit, Kira breathed. You're not Omega. I shifted back, confusion flooding through me. What? Yes, I am, I've always been. No, you're not. She circled me, her expression intense. I've seen thousands of wolves, Frosting. I know what Omega looks like. You're beta at minimum, maybe higher. How the hell did an entire pack miss that? They didn't miss it. I'm weak. Everyone always said. Everyone lied. She gestured toward the training grounds. Come on, show me what you can do. I don't know how to fight. So you've never trained. I shook my head, shame heating my cheeks. Omegas don't train, we're too fragile, might get hurt. Kira's expression darkened. That's not protection, that's control. They kept you weak on purpose. She moved to a rack of training weapons, selected 2 padded staffs and tossed one to me. I caught it clumsily. Basic stance, feet shoulder-width apart, knees bent. Hold the staff like this. She demonstrated and I mimicked her movements. It felt awkward, foreign, but also right, like my body had been waiting for this. Now defend. She came at me slowly, telegraphing her movements. I blocked instinctively, the staff meeting hers with a crack that reverberated up my arms. We went back and forth, her attacks gradually increasing in speed and complexity. I should have been overwhelmed. Should have been on my ass within seconds. But my body responded, finding rhythms I didn't know existed, anticipating movements I'd never seen before. Faster, Kira demanded, and I moved faster. Harder, and I struck harder, until we were truly sparring, staffs blurring between us, and I was laughing, actually laughing, with the joy of movement, of power, of being more than I'd been told I could be. Kira finally called a halt, both of us breathing hard. You're a natural. With training, you could be formidable. I don't understand. How is this possible? If I was always this strong, why didn't I feel it before? Because they made sure you didn't. She set her staff aside, her expression grim. There are herbs, suppressants that can dampen a wolf's natural abilities. Mixed into food or water, they're almost undetectable. They make you feel weak, foggy, disconnected from your wolf. I'm betting Lucian's pack dosed you regularly. The words hit like a physical blow. They poisoned me. They suppressed you, probably from the moment you showed any sign of strength. Keep the Omega weak, keep her dependent, keep her grateful for scraps. Kira's voice was hard with anger. It's a control tactic, common in southern packs that prioritize hierarchy over health. I thought about the meals I'd eaten, always leftovers, always slightly off-tasting. The tea the pack Omega supervisor had insisted I drink every morning for my health. The way I'd always felt tired, disconnected, less than I should be. How long until it's out of my system? It's already mostly gone. You've been eating clean food here for days. Your wolf is waking up, reclaiming what was stolen. She studied me with those glacier eyes. Give it another week and you'll realize just how much power they kept from you. Footsteps crunched in the snow behind us. I turned to find Titus approaching, his expression carefully neutral but his eyes sharp with concern. Everything all right? Your mate's not Omega, Kira announced bluntly. She's been suppressed, possibly for years. Something dangerous flashed across Titus's face, there and gone so quickly I almost missed it. You're certain? Completely. Watch. Kira tossed me the staff again. Frostine, shift and hold it. I shifted, and this time it was even easier. My wolf form solidified around me, and I grabbed the staff in my jaws. It should have been impossible. Wolves in shifted form couldn't manipulate tools effectively. But I held it steady, my jaw strong enough to maintain the grip without effort. Titus went very still. That's not possible for Omega. No, it's not. Kira retrieved the staff. She's beta minimum, maybe more. Hard to tell when she's been artificially suppressed for so long, but she's got power, Titus. Real power. They kept her down on purpose. I shifted back, my heart racing. Why would they do that? Control, Titus said quietly, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. If you'd known your true strength, you might have fought back, might have rejected Lucian instead of accepting his rejection, might have demanded better treatment. He took a step closer, his amber eyes blazing. They made you believe you were weak so you'd accept being treated as less than you were. The implications crashed over me. Every moment of self-doubt, every instance of thinking I deserved the scraps they gave me, every time I'd believed I was the problem, it had all been built on a lie. A deliberate, systematic lie designed to keep me controllable. I want to train, I heard myself say. I want to learn what I'm actually capable of. Kira grinned, fierce and approving. Now that's what I like to hear. We start tomorrow at dawn. Bring that energy and leave the self-doubt at the door. As she walked away, Titus remained, studying me with an intensity that made my skin prickle with awareness. How do you feel? Angry, the admission burst out of me. Furious, they stole years from me, made me believe I was nothing when I was. I gestured helplessly. When I was this. Yes, you were always this. He moved closer and I didn't retreat. You were always strong, Frostine, always powerful. They just convinced you otherwise. But now you know the truth. The question is, what will you do with it? I thought about Marcella's cruel words, about Lucian's dismissive rejection, about every wolf who'd looked through me like I didn't exist. And I thought about the woman I'd been 4 days ago, broken, defeated, ready to accept humiliation as her due. That woman was gone. Or maybe she'd never existed. Maybe I'd just been buried under layers of poison and lies, waiting for clean air and honest earth to remember what I was. I'm going to become everything they were afraid I'd be, I said. Titus's smile was slow and devastating. Good, I'll be here to watch you rise. As I walked back to the lodge, my wolf purred with satisfaction. For the first time in years, we were in agreement. We were done being small, done being convenient, done accepting less than we deserved. Lucian and his pack had tried to bury me alive, but they'd forgotten something crucial about wolves. We're very good at digging our way out. The training became my religion. Every dawn for 2 weeks, I met Kira at the grounds, and she systematically dismantled every limitation I'd accepted as truth. I learned to fight, to move with purpose instead of apology, to take up space instead of shrinking from it. My body transformed, muscle replacing the softness of starvation, strength flowing through limbs that had been kept deliberately weak. But it was more than physical. Every block I mastered, every strike that landed true, was proof that the lies had been just that, lies. I wasn't fragile, wasn't broken, wasn't less than. On the 15th day, a stranger arrived at the lodge just as I was finishing breakfast. He was young, barely 20, with the nervous energy of someone carrying dangerous information. Titus met him privately in his study, but I caught fragments of their conversation through the door. Couldn't stay silent anymore. You're risking everything. She deserves to know the truth. When Titus emerged, his expression was carefully controlled, but I'd learned to read the tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes. "Frosting, this is Owen. He has something to tell you. I'll stay if you want or give you privacy." "Stay," I said immediately. Whatever this was, I wanted him there. Owen twisted his hands together, his gaze darting between us. "I'm from Ashford Pack. Was from it, I mean, I left 3 days ago. Can't go back." He took a shaky breath. "I worked in the Alpha's household. Cleaning, errands, that sort of thing. I saw things I wasn't supposed to see." "What things?" My voice came out steadier than I felt. "Marcella, she's not. She's not what everyone thinks. I saw her meeting with a witch from the Eastern Covens, multiple times, starting about 8 months ago." He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket. "I found this in her room when I was cleaning. Couldn't read most of it, the handwriting was terrible and parts were in languages I don't know, but I recognized some words. Wolfsbane, binding, severance." Titus took the paper, his jaw tightening as he scanned it. "This is a recipe for a suppressant that weakens mate bonds." "There's more," Owen continued, the words tumbling out now. "I overheard her talking to the witch 2 weeks before the rejection. She said the bond between you and Lucian needed to be manageable by the time she made her move. That she'd been doozing you both for months, making the connection weak enough that he could reject you without it killing him." The room tilted. "She poisoned us." "The wolfsbane you were getting was double-purposed. It kept your wolf weak, yeah, but it also dampened the mate bond. Made it feel less intense, less real, easy to dismiss." Owen's expression was pained. "She wanted Lucian for his position, his pack connections, but he was supposed to be bonded to you, so she had to make sure that bond could be broken." "Why are you telling me this?" Titus asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Why risk coming here?" "Because it's not right." Owen met his gaze squarely despite the obvious fear. "I watched Frosting for months, watched her take abuse, work herself to exhaustion, accept treatment that would have broken most wolves. And I knew, we all knew, those of us at the bottom, that something was wrong, that she didn't deserve what was happening. But we were too afraid to speak up." "Until now," I said softly. "Until now, when Marcella started talking about coming after you, about forcing you back for treatment. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. She's planning something worse. I don't know what, but she's been meeting with council members, spreading stories about Alpha Titus kidnapping unstable wolves. She's building a case to have you forcibly returned." Titus moved to the window, his massive frame rigid with controlled fury. "She's afraid. Frosting choosing to stay here, choosing strength over submission. It threatens everything Marcella's built. If other wolves realize they can leave, can reject the abuse, her carefully constructed hierarchy crumbles." "There's something else." Owen hesitated, then continued. "I heard Marcella and Lucian arguing 3 nights ago. He wanted to let it go, said you'd made your choice and they should respect it. She told him he was weak, that you were an embarrassment he needed to erase, a mistake that had to be corrected or his reputation would never recover." "So this isn't about me at all," I said, the realization settling into place. "It's about control, about maintaining appearances, about making sure no one else gets ideas about choosing their own path." "Exactly." Owen pulled out another paper, this one more carefully preserved. "This is a letter from the witch to Marcella. It talks about payment for services rendered, specifically, for creating the undetectable suppressant, and for casting a minor glamour that made Marcella seem more compatible to Lucian than she actually was. The whole thing was manufactured, Frosting. The rejection, the bond breaking so easily, Lucian choosing her, none of it was real. It was all magic and manipulation." I took the letter with numb fingers, staring at the elegant script that detailed my destruction like a business transaction. She bought him. She bought my mate and my life and my sanity, and she did it with herbs and lies and magic. "I'm so sorry," Owen whispered. "I should have said something sooner, should have done something." "You were afraid," Titus said, not unkindly. "She's powerful, connected, dangerous. What you did today took courage." He turned to me, his expression careful. "What do you need?" What did I need? I looked at the papers in my hands, physical proof that my entire reality had been constructed by someone else's ambition, that the rejection that had nearly destroyed me was artificial. The bond that had felt so real was probably manufactured too, and my supposed weakness was just another layer of Marcella's control. I should have felt devastated, should have broken down at the confirmation that I'd been played so completely. But instead, I felt something else rising in my chest. Rage, pure, clean, clarifying rage. I need to understand something, I said slowly. If the bond between Lucian and me was dampened, weakened, made artificial, does that mean it was never real to begin with? Titus exchanged a glance with Owen before answering. Proximity bonds can form naturally, especially between young wolves in the same pack. But if Marcella was manipulating it from the start, dosing you with suppressants and Lucian with compatibility glamours, then no. What you felt was real to you, but the bond itself was manufactured, encouraged by her magic to form in a way that would be easy to break when she needed it broken. So I grieved a lie. The words came out flat. I let myself believe I was worthless because I'd been rejected by my mate, but he was never my mate at all. He was just a convenient pawn in her game, and I was the obstacle she needed to remove. Yes, Titus moved closer, his presence solid and grounding. You were never the problem, Frostine. You were the victim of a calculated attack designed to break you completely. And the fact that you're standing here, that you survived it, that you're growing stronger every day, that terrifies her, because it means she failed. Owen cleared his throat. There's one more thing. The council meeting is in 5 days. Marcella's going to present her case, demand your return. She's got testimonies lined up, wolves she's paid or threatened into claiming you were unstable, dangerous, obsessed. She's even got a healer who'll swear you need institutional treatment. Let her come, I heard myself say. Let her bring her bought testimonies and her lies and her council representatives. I'm not the wolf she broke anymore. Frostine, Titus started, but I cut him off. She made me believe I was nothing, made me accept abuse as my due, made me stand at that wedding in that ridiculous dress because she wanted to savor her victory. I looked up at him, at this alpha who'd crashed into my life like a force of nature and offered me choices instead of chains. I'm done running, done hiding. If she wants to drag me before the council, fine. Let's see how her story holds up when I can actually fight back. You don't have to do this, Titus said softly. I can handle the council, present Owen's evidence, expose her schemes without you having to face her again. Yes, I do, because this isn't just about me anymore. I thought about Owen's words, about other wolves at the bottom who knew something was wrong but were too afraid to speak. How many others has she done this to? How many wolves has she manipulated, suppressed, destroyed to get what she wants? If I don't stand up now, if I let you fight this battle for me, then I'm still letting her win. I'm still accepting that I need to be protected because I'm too weak to protect myself. You're not weak, Titus said, his voice fierce. You've never been weak. I know that now, thanks to you, to Kira, to this pack that showed me what I actually am. I folded Owen's papers carefully, holding the evidence of my stolen years. It's time Marcella learned it too. Kira appeared in the doorway, her timing impeccable as always. I couldn't help but overhear. These walls are thin and you're not exactly whispering, so we're going to war. No, I said, we're going to truth, and we're going to make sure everyone hears it. Owen smiled, tentative but genuine. I'll testify, tell the council everything I know. I'm already exiled from Ashford, might as well make it count for something. You'll have sanctuary here, Titus promised. For as long as you need it. Anyone who stands against Marcella's tyranny has a place in my pack. As Owen left to get settled, I remained in the study, staring at the evidence in my hands. Proof that I'd been destroyed systematically, deliberately, efficiently. That every moment of self-doubt had been engineered, every instance of pain calculated. But also proof that I'd survived. That despite everything Marcella had done to break me, I was still standing. And now I was angry enough to make her regret it. The council descended on Titus's territory like a murder of crows, all black robes and ancient ceremony. They erected a pavilion in the village square, something between a courtroom and a theater, with stone benches arranged in a semicircle around a central platform. Wolves from neighboring packs arrived to witness the proceedings, some out of genuine concern, others for the entertainment value of watching powerful wolves tear each other apart. I watched from the lodge window as they assembled, my stomach a knot of nerves and rage. Kira stood beside me, her presence steady and reassuring. "You don't have to be strong for them," she said quietly. "You just have to be honest." "What if honest isn't enough?" "Then we fight." She said it so simply, like violence was just another option on a menu. "But it won't come to that. You've got truth on your side, and that's more powerful than ancient law." I wanted to believe her. The summons came at midday. A council representative in formal regalia knocked on my door and informed me with bureaucratic politeness that my presence was required. Titus was waiting in the hallway, dressed in what I'd learned was his formal armor, all black leather and silver fastenings, his hair pulled back to reveal the sharp angles of his face. "Ready?" he asked. "No, but let's go anyway." The walk to the pavilion felt like an execution march. Wolves lined the path, some from Titus's pack offering supportive nods, others strangers whose expressions ranged from curious to hostile. I kept my spine straight, my chin up, channeling every ounce of strength Kira had beaten into me over the past weeks. The pavilion was already full. Council members sat in elevated positions, their faces carefully neutral. And there, on the opposite side of the platform, stood Lycan. He looked different than I remembered. Thinner, with shadows under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. His formal attire was impeccable as always, but something in his posture suggested discomfort. Beside him stood 3 pack elders I recognized, stone-faced wolves who'd spent decades enforcing Ashford hierarchy. And slightly behind them, radiating satisfaction barely concealed as concern, was Marcella. She wore white, of course she did. Virginal, innocent, the perfect picture of a wronged Luna. Her honey hair was arranged in soft waves, her makeup subtle but flawless. When her eyes met mine, they glittered with malice dressed as sympathy. The head of the council, an ancient wolf named Aldrich, whose white hair and ceremonial robes gave him the appearance of a severe angel, called the assembly to order. "We gather today to adjudicate a matter of territorial sovereignty and mate law. Lycan Ashford of the Southern Territories claims that Frostine, formerly of his pack, was unlawfully taken by Alpha Titus of the Northern Territories. Alpha Titus claims the right of true mate bond supersedes pack membership. Let us hear both cases." One of the Ashford elders stepped forward. His name was Cornelius, and I remembered him as particularly harsh during my time in the pack. "The facts are simple. Frostine was a member of Ashford pack, bound by oath and pack law. She was recognized as mate to Lycan Ashford, our Alpha's heir, in a formal ceremony witnessed by the entire pack, though the bond was later dissolved by mutual agreement." "It wasn't mutual," I said, my voice carrying across the pavilion. "He rejected me. I had no choice in the matter." Cornelius's expression soured. "Regardless, you remained a pack member under our protection and authority. Alpha Titus violated territorial sovereignty by removing you without permission, consent, or proper diplomatic channels. This is an act of aggression that cannot be tolerated." Murmurs rippled through the assembled wolves. Some nodded in agreement. The law was clear on this point. You couldn't just take wolves from other packs, even if you claimed a mate bond. Titus stepped forward, his presence immediately commanding attention. "I claim true mate bond, which supersedes all pack law and territorial boundaries. Frostine is my destined mate, recognized not through ceremony, but through the undeniable pull that connects our souls. Pack membership cannot override the bond the moon herself creates." "Convenient," Marcella said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "That this supposed true mate bond only revealed itself after Frostine became available, after she'd been rejected by her actual mate. It sounds less like destiny and more like opportunistic predation on a vulnerable, unstable wolf." "I am not unstable," I said, forcing myself to look at her directly. "And I was never Lucian's true mate." "Of course you were," Cornelius interjected. "The ceremony was a lie." Owen stepped onto the platform, and I saw Marcella's face go pale beneath her makeup. "I'm Owen Kerr, formerly of Ashford Pack. I have evidence that Marcella Ashford manipulated the mate bond between Frostine and Lucian using wolfsbane and magic purchased from Eastern covens. The bond was manufactured to be weak enough to break when convenient. He held up the papers, and the council members leaned forward with interest. Cornelius sputtered protests, but Aldrich silenced him with a raised hand. These are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Letters detailing payment for services rendered, recipes for suppressants, testimony from others in the household who witnessed Marcella's meetings with the witch. Owen's voice was steady despite the obvious fear. Frostine was systematically poisoned and manipulated. The rejection wasn't natural, it was engineered. The pavilion erupted into chaos. Wolves shouted questions, accusations. Marcella's carefully constructed mask cracked, fury bleeding through. This is absurd. The desperate lies of a disgruntled servant and a disturbed Omega trying to justify her obsession. I'm not Omega. I stepped forward, and the authority in my voice surprised even me. I'm Beta at minimum, possibly higher. Ashford Pack kept me suppressed with wolfsbane, kept me weak and compliant and easy to control. They made me believe I was nothing so I'd accept being treated as nothing. Frostine, Lucian spoke for the first time, and I was shocked to hear pain in his voice. He looked at Marcella, something like horror dawning in his eyes. Is this true? Did you manipulate the bond? Of course not. Lucian, you can't possibly believe. I felt it, he said quietly. When I rejected her, it should have destroyed me. True mate rejections are agonizing, sometimes fatal, but it was easy, too easy. I thought it meant we weren't actually compatible, that the ceremony had been wrong. But if you were dampening the bond all along... You're being ridiculous. She's clearly manipulating you. Enough. Aldrich's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. This council will examine the evidence presented. If these claims are substantiated, we will take appropriate action against those responsible for using magic to manipulate sacred mate bonds. He fixed Marcella with a look that could have frozen fire. Mate bond manipulation is one of our highest crimes. If found guilty, the consequences are severe. Marcella's composure finally shattered completely. This is a witch hunt. You're taking the word of traitors and thieves over a Luna's. You're not a Luna, I said, and something in my voice made everyone fall silent. You're a fraud who bought her position with poison and lies. You destroyed me, or tried to, because I was in your way. You kept me weak because strong wolves don't accept abuse. You made me believe I deserved scraps because wolves who know their worth demand better. I moved closer to her, and she actually took a step back. But you failed. I survived your poison. I survived your schemes. I found a pack that showed me what I actually am, and now I'm standing here, stronger than you ever wanted me to be, ready to burn down every lie you've built your life on. You can't prove any of this, Marcella hissed, but her voice shook. We can. Vera stepped onto the platform, carrying a wooden case. I've analyzed Frostine's blood. The wolfsbane levels were severe months, possibly years of regular dosing. I've also examined the so-called tea that was being forced on her at Ashford Pack. It's laced with suppressants designed specifically to weaken mate bonds and inhibit wolf abilities. She opened the case, revealing vials and samples. This is scientific evidence, not just testimony. Frostine was systematically poisoned. Aldrich examined the vials, his expression growing darker with each one. Other council members conferred in low voices. The assembled wolves watched with rapt attention as everything I'd described was confirmed by cold, hard evidence. Lucian looked like he might be sick. Marcella, tell me they're lying. Tell me you didn't. It doesn't matter what I did. Marcella's composure finally exploded entirely. She was nothing, an Omega embarrassment that would have dragged you down. I saved you from a pathetic bond, gave you a proper Luna, elevated your status. You destroyed an innocent wolf for your own ambition, Aldrich said coldly. You violated sacred law, used forbidden magic, and attempted to cover your crimes with more manipulation. This council finds sufficient evidence to proceed with a full investigation and trial. No, Marcella lunged forward, but pack guards materialized to restrain her. I did what was necessary. The old ways are dying, and wolves like her, weak, submissive, pathetic, they hold us back. I made things better." "You made nothing better," I said quietly. "You just revealed exactly what you are. Not a Luna, not powerful, just cruel. And cruelty isn't strength, it's just cruelty." As they led Marcella away, still screaming about injustice and conspiracy, Lucian approached me. He looked broken, hollowed out. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't know, I should have questioned, should have seen." "You were manipulated too," I said, and found I meant it. The anger I'd carried for him had dimmed in the face of understanding how completely we'd both been played. "But you still chose to keep me in the pack as a servant, still chose to force me to stand at your wedding. That wasn't Marcella, that was you." He nodded, accepting the truth. "I was cruel. I wanted to prove I'd made the right choice, and I used you to do it. That's unforgivable." "Yes, it is." I turned away from him. "Good luck, Lucian. I hope you find what you're actually looking for." As the assembly dispersed, Titus was there, his hand finding mine naturally. The spark was still there, but now it didn't terrify me. Now it felt like coming home. "You were magnificent," he said softly. I was honest. I looked up at him, at this giant of a wolf who'd given me space to heal and strength to fight. "Is it over?" "The investigation will take time. But yes, you're free, Frostine, truly free." Free, the word settled into my bones like a benediction. For the first time in my life, I believed it. The investigation stretched across 3 days, during which council members interviewed witnesses, examined evidence, and deliberated in closed sessions. The village held its breath, caught between hope and fear. Marcella remained under guard, her fury echoing through the holding chamber at all hours. Lucian had returned to Ashford territory, defeated and hollowed out, taking the disgraced elders with him. But on the evening of the 3rd day, Aldrich summoned Titus and me to a private meeting in the pavilion, now empty except for the head council members. The old wolf's expression was grave as we approached. "We have reached preliminary conclusions," he said without preamble. "The evidence against Marcella is substantial. She will face trial for mate bond manipulation, use of forbidden magic, and conspiracy to commit psychological harm. These are capital offenses in some territories." Relief should have flooded through me, but Aldrich's tone suggested there was more. "However," he continued, and there it was, "the matter of territorial sovereignty remains unresolved. While we acknowledge the true mate bond between you and Alpha Titus, the method of your departure from Ashford Pack was irregular. You were removed without proper diplomatic channels, without formal release from your pack oath, without following established protocols." "She was being abused," Titus said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "We believe that. The evidence supports it. But belief and legal precedent are different things." Aldrich folded his hands. "Several Southern Territory alphas have registered complaints. They fear that if we allow this precedent, an alpha taking wolves from other packs based solely on claimed mate bonds, it will destabilize the entire territorial system. What's to stop any alpha from claiming any wolf they desire?" "The fact that true mate bonds are rare and undeniable," Titus growled. "This isn't about desire, it's about—" "We understand your position, but politics are complicated." Aldrich looked at me directly. "Which brings us to the question at hand. Several alphas have proposed a compromise. You would be formally released from Ashford Pack, clearing any legal issues. But to prevent the appearance of Northern Territories overreaching into Southern affairs, you would need to voluntarily renounce any claims against Ashford and return to neutral territory for a waiting period." "How long?" I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. 6 months, after which, if you still wished to bond with Alpha Titus, you would be free to do so without political complications. 6 months separated from my mate. Titus's hands clenched into fists. 6 months during which she'd be vulnerable, alone, prey to any pack that wanted to make a political point. She would be under council protection. Your protection is politics and paperwork. My protection is my life laid down for hers. Titus turned to me, and the anguish in his eyes made my chest ache. But it's not my choice to make. It never was. Frostine, what do you want? Before I could answer, Aldrich continued. There is another option, one that several alphas have proposed, though I warn you it's not pleasant. He pulled out a document covered in official seals. You could return to Ashford Pack voluntarily. Lucian has offered to formally release you from any mate claims and provide a public apology. This would satisfy the sovereignty concerns and prevent any precedent that Northern Territories fear. You're asking her to go back to the place that tortured her, Titus said, his voice dangerously quiet. To the pack that poisoned her, suppressed her, made her believe she was worthless. I'm presenting options, not making demands. Aldrich looked between us. The political reality is this. If Frostine stays here without following proper protocols, several Southern alphas have threatened to view it as an act of Northern aggression. They'll push for sanctions, possibly even conflict. Over time, that conflict could escalate into something much worse. War, I whispered. You're saying my choice could start a war. I'm saying your choice has political implications beyond personal preference. That's the burden of being connected to powerful wolves. Aldrich's expression softened slightly. I don't envy you this decision, child, but it is yours to make. The weight of it pressed down on my shoulders. Return to Ashford and endure more humiliation to prevent conflict. Separate from Titus for 6 months and pray council protection meant something. Or stay here and potentially watch wolves die because I refused to bend to political pressure. Can I have time to think? I asked. Of course, we reconvene tomorrow at sunset. Whatever you decide, the council will enforce it. Aldrich gathered his documents. For what it's worth, I believe you've suffered enough, but believing that and preventing war are unfortunately separate concerns. After he left, I stood in the empty pavilion, staring at nothing. Titus remained silent beside me, giving me space to process. Finally, I spoke. What do you think I should do? I think you should choose whatever keeps you whole. His voice was rough with emotion. If that means going back for a formal release, if that means 6 months apart, if that means anything other than staying here, I'll accept it. I'll hate every moment, but I'll accept it. Even if it destroys you. Even then, because you choosing yourself, choosing what you need, is worth more than my comfort. He turned to face me fully. I crashed that wedding and took you because I couldn't stand your suffering another moment. But I've learned something since then. Real love isn't about saving someone. It's about supporting them while they save themselves. Tears burned in my eyes. What if I'm not strong enough? What if going back breaks me completely? Then you come back here and we put you together again. And again, as many times as it takes. He reached out slowly, giving me time to refuse, and cupped my face in his massive hands. But I don't think you'll break. I think you're the strongest wolf I've ever met. And I think whatever you decide tomorrow will be the right choice because it's yours. I left the pavilion and walked into the forest, needing solitude to think. The moon was rising, full and bright, painting the snow silver. My wolf stirred inside me, stronger than ever, no longer the cowering creature that had accepted scraps and abuse. I thought about returning to Ashford, about walking back into that pack house, seeing the kitchens where I'd worked until my hands bled, the servants' quarters where I'd cried myself to sleep, about facing wolves who'd watched my humiliation and done nothing, about giving them the satisfaction of seeing me bend one more time. The thought made my wolf snarl with rejection. But I also thought about war, about young wolves dying because I was too proud to compromise, about Titus's pack, these wolves who'd shown me kindness and strength and what real pack bonds looked like, being dragged into conflict because of me. Could I live with that? Could I choose my own peace over their safety? I found myself at the clearing where Titus had first explained true mate bonds, where he'd told me about dreams and recognition and waiting centuries, where he'd offered me choice instead of chains. Choice, real, genuine choice. Not manipulation disguised as options, not threats wrapped in concern, but actual freedom to decide my own path. When had anyone given me that before? Not my parents, who'd arranged my betrothal. Not Lucian, who'd rejected me but kept me captive. Not Marcella, who'd engineered my destruction. Not even the council, whose options were all just different flavors of bending to political pressure. Only Titus. Only this giant of a wolf who'd crashed into my life and then stepped back, offering support without demanding submission. And suddenly, I knew what I wanted. Not what was politically convenient, not what would make others comfortable, not what would prevent conflict or satisfy Southern alphas or maintain peaceful relations. What I wanted. I walked back to the village as dawn painted the sky pink and gold. Found Titus in the training grounds, going through combat forms with a ferocity that spoke of sleeplessness and worry. He stopped when he saw me, his amber eyes searching my face. "I've made my decision," I said. "Tell me." "I'm staying here, with you. No 6-month separation, no returning to Ashford, no bending to political pressure to make others comfortable." My voice grew stronger with each word. I spent years accepting what others decided for me, being convenient, making myself small, and I'm done. If the Southern alphas want to view this as aggression, that's their choice, but this is mine. Frosting, the consequences. I know the consequences. I know there might be conflict, sanctions, political fallout, but going back, even temporarily, would destroy everything I've built here. Would tell every suppressed wolf watching that we should still bend to the systems that abuse us, that our freedom is less important than maintaining power structures. I moved closer to him. "You told me real love is supporting someone while they save themselves. Well, I'm choosing to save myself. And that means choosing you, choosing this pack. Choosing to stand and fight, instead of running or compromising, or accepting less than I deserve." A smile spread across his face, fierce and proud. "You're absolutely certain." "For the first time in my life, I'm certain of something." I took his hand, felt that spark ignite between us. "Whatever comes next, we face it together, as equals, as mates, as wolves who chose each other freely." He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. "Then we'll make it work. Whatever the cost, whatever the fight, we'll make it work." "Together," I agreed. And as the sun rose over the mountains, painting everything gold and new, I finally understood what freedom felt like. It felt like choosing myself, and choosing him. It felt like home. When I delivered my decision to the council at sunset, I expected resistance, argument, threats of consequences. What I didn't expect was the quiet wolf who stood up from the back of the assembly and said, "I stand with her." She was small, dark-haired, with scars on her arms that spoke of hard living. From the Eastern Territories, based on her accent. An Omega, based on how she held herself, or how she'd been taught to hold herself. "Your name?" Aldrich asked, clearly as surprised as everyone else. "Iris Thornwood, of the Eastern Ridge Pack, former member." She swallowed hard but didn't back down. "I was rejected by my mate 3 years ago. They kept me in the pack as labor, fed me suppressants, told me I was too weak to survive elsewhere. I believed them until I heard about Frosting, about a wolf who survived the same thing and chose herself." Another wolf stood, this one from the Western Territories, then another, and another. Within minutes, a dozen wolves were on their feet, each with similar stories. Suppressants, abuse disguised as protection, rejections that trapped rather than freed, ancient laws used to justify cruelty. Aldrich looked genuinely shaken. "This is irregular. This is the truth you've been ignoring." A massive wolf stepped forward, not as large as Titus, but formidable nonetheless. Alpha Marcus of the Western Vale Pack, I recognized him from the earlier proceedings. "I've watched the Southern Territories use ancient law to brutalize their weaker members for decades. Watched alphas claim pack sovereignty to justify keeping wolves prisoner. I stayed silent because it wasn't my business. But if we're deciding whether to punish Titus for rescuing his mate from abuse, then it's everyone's business. Alpha Marcus, you're suggesting we invalidate centuries of territorial law. I'm suggesting we examine whether those laws serve justice or just power." Marcus's voice carried across the pavilion. "The ancient laws were created to protect wolves, to maintain order, to ensure packs could govern themselves. But they've been twisted into tools of oppression, used to keep the weak weak and the powerful unaccountable." Another alpha stood, this one from the Northern Territories, a grizzled wolf named Helena with silver hair and battle scars. "I've received 3 requests for sanctuary in the past week. all from wolves who heard about Frostine, all from packs that were using ancient law to justify abuse. If we punish her for choosing freedom, we're telling those wolves that the law protects their abusers, not them. The law protects pack structure, one of the southern alphas argued, a sleek wolf named Desmond whose territory bordered Lucian's. Without sovereignty, without hierarchy, we descend into chaos. Chaos, Iris said quietly, but her voice carried. Is that what you call freedom? Because I've lived under your order, and it felt a lot like dying slowly. The southern alpha's face reddened. You don't understand the complexities. I understand that I was beaten for asking for adequate food. I understand that I was dosed with wolfsbane daily to keep me compliant. I understand that when I tried to leave, I was told the ancient laws required my alpha's permission, which he would never grant. Iris's voice grew stronger. So explain to me how those laws protected me, Alpha Desmond. Please, I'm very interested in the complexities. Desmond had no answer. Titus moved to the center of the pavilion, commanding immediate attention. The Southern Territories are afraid, not of me taking one wolf. They're afraid of what happens when wolves realize they can choose, when the suppressed learn they don't have to accept abuse, when the weak discover they were kept weak intentionally. He looked at each alpha in turn. You're afraid your carefully constructed hierarchies will crumble, and you're right, they should. You're advocating for anarchy, another Southern alpha spat. I'm advocating for choice, for accountability, for laws that protect wolves instead of entrapping them. Titus's amber eyes blazed. Frostine isn't special because I claim her as my mate. She's special because she survived something that should have destroyed her, and instead of accepting defeat, she chose to rise. How many other wolves could do the same if they weren't being systematically suppressed? Kira stepped forward, adding her voice to the growing coalition. I was deemed too aggressive for an Omega in my birth pack. They tried to break me with punishments and restrictions. When I fought back, they invoked ancient law, said I was violating pack hierarchy threatening order. I escaped, but how many others couldn't? The testimonies continued. Wolves from every territory sharing stories of abuse hidden behind ancient law, of suppressants justified as medicine, of rejections used as weapons, of a system that protected the powerful and punished the vulnerable for existing. Aldrich raised his hand for silence. When the pavilion finally quieted, his expression was troubled. What you're describing, if even half of it is true, it suggests systematic problems far beyond this individual case. It's all true, Helena said grimly. We've all known it. Some of us just pretended not to see because confronting it meant challenging everything our society is built on. So what do you propose? Aldrich asked. We cannot simply dissolve territorial sovereignty. We cannot eliminate all hierarchy. Some structure is necessary. Structure, yes. Oppression, no. Marcus moved beside Titus, a clear show of solidarity. I propose we form a coalition, territories committed to real reform, to examining our laws and removing the ones that enable abuse, to holding alphas accountable for how they treat their wolves, to making sanctuary available for those who need it. You're describing a schism, Desmond said, his voice tight with anger. You're proposing to split the council. I'm proposing we evolve or become irrelevant. Marcus looked at the assembled wolves, at the Omega standing beside former alphas, at the coalition forming before their eyes. Because if we don't change, wolves will keep suffering, and eventually they'll stop asking permission to leave. They'll just fight. Is that what you want? War. The Southern alphas exchanged glances. They could see what was happening, power shifting, alliances forming, the old order cracking. Some looked furious, others looked frightened. A few looked thoughtful. One of them, an older alpha named Thorn, finally spoke. If we agree to examine these laws, to consider reforms, will the Northern Territories agree to follow proper diplomatic channels going forward? Define proper, Titus said carefully. Formal sanctuary requests, documentation of abuse, council oversight of territorial disputes. Thorn looked uncomfortable, like the words tasted bad. And a guarantee that this doesn't become an excuse for territory raiding disguised as rescue. Agreed, Titus said. With one condition. Any wolf who requests sanctuary gets it, no questions asked, while their case is being reviewed. No more forcing victims to prove their abuse to their abusers before they can leave. That could be exploited. So could the current system. Except the current system is definitely being exploited, and we have a dozen wolves here who'll testify to it. Titus's voice was hard. Those are my terms. Take them or prepare for every suppressed wolf in your territories to hear about frosting and realize they have options. The threat hung in the air, clear and undeniable. This wasn't just about one wolf anymore. It was about a movement, a shift in how power operated. The Southern Alphas could adapt or watch their carefully controlled hierarchies dissolve. Aldrich looked exhausted. This council will take a recess to discuss these proposals. We reconvene in 2 hours. He fixed Titus with a stern look. I hope you understand what you're starting. A reckoning, Titus said simply, long overdue. As the assembly dispersed into heated conversations, Iris approached me hesitantly. Thank you for standing up, for being brave enough to choose yourself. I've been afraid for so long, and watching you, it made me remember I could be brave too. You walked into a council assembly and challenged an alpha, I said softly. That's not bravery, that's courage. What's the difference? Bravery is not feeling fear. Courage is feeling it and doing the right thing anyway. I squeezed her hand. You're already free, Iris. You just needed to remember it. Other wolves approached, some sharing their stories, others simply offering solidarity. What had started as my personal battle had become something larger. A coalition of the suppressed, the rejected, the wolves who'd survived systems designed to break them. Titus found me in the center of it all, surrounded by wolves who'd found their voices. You've started a revolution, he said quietly. I just wanted freedom. That's how all revolutions start, one person deciding they deserve better. He looked at the growing crowd, at wolves from different territories finding common cause. The question is, what do we do with it? Kira joined us, her expression fierce. We organize, we document, we make it impossible for them to ignore what's been happening, and we make sure every suppressed wolf knows they have options. The Southern Alphas will fight this, I said. Let them, Kira's smile was sharp. They're fighting the tide, and the tide always wins. When the council reconvened, Aldrich looked like he'd aged a decade. After extensive deliberation, we've reached a compromise. The council acknowledges systematic issues in how ancient laws have been applied. We agree to form a reform committee to examine these laws and propose changes. The Southern Alphas looked mutinous, but stayed silent. Additionally, we establish a formal sanctuary protocol. Any wolf claiming abuse may request temporary sanctuary while their case is reviewed by neutral parties. Alphas who refuse to cooperate with investigations will face council sanctions. It wasn't everything, but it was something, a crack in the wall, a foothold for change. And regarding frosting, Titus asked. The council recognizes the true mate bond and acknowledges that extraordinary circumstances justified extraordinary actions. She is formally released from Ashford Pack with no conditions. The matter is closed. Aldrich looked at the assembled wolves. But make no mistake, what happened here today changes everything. We've opened a door that cannot be closed. I pray we're prepared for what comes through it. As the official proceedings ended, wolves gathered in small groups, making plans, forming alliances, plotting the future. I stood with Titus, watching a movement be born from pain and courage. Are you ready for this? He asked, for being the wolf who started it all. I thought about the girl in the lilac dress, forced to watch her mate marry someone else. About the broken Omega who'd accepted abuse as her due. About the suppressed wolf who'd forgotten she had teeth. I'm ready to make sure no one else has to suffer what I did, I said. If that makes me a revolutionary, so be it. He kissed my forehead gently. Then, let's burn down the old world and build something better. And surrounded by wolves who'd found their strength, I believed we could. 3 weeks after the council's decision, Lucian requested a formal audience. Not through diplomatic channels or official summons, but a personal appeal delivered by a messenger who looked terrified to be carrying it. "He says he needs closure," the young wolf stammered, holding out the sealed letter. "Says there are things that need to be settled between you. He's asking for a gathering under neutral terms. Just him, you, and witnesses of your choosing." I broke the seal and read Lucian's careful script. The letter was formal, almost stiff, but underneath I could sense desperation. He wanted to face me, to say whatever he'd been carrying since Marcella's schemes were exposed. The letter ended with a single line that made my chest tighten. I need to know if what I felt was ever real, or if she poisoned all of it. Titus read over my shoulder, his presence warm against my back. "You don't have to do this. You owe him nothing." "I know, but maybe I need to do it for me, to close that chapter completely." I looked up at him. "Will you be there?" "Always." The gathering was set for the village square, open air and public. Lucian had requested privacy, but I'd refused. If we were doing this, we were doing it where everyone could see. No more secrets, no more manipulation hidden behind closed doors. He arrived at sunset, alone as promised. He looked different, thinner, with new lines around his eyes that aged him beyond his years. His usual arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like humility. Almost. The square was packed. Titus's pack, of course, but also wolves from the coalition that had formed after the council meeting. Iris was there, and Kira, and Alpha Marcus. Even some Southern Territory wolves had come, drawn by curiosity or the promise of drama. Lucian stopped a respectful distance away. "Frostine, thank you for agreeing to meet." "I didn't agree for you," I said clearly. "I agreed for me, so say what you need to say." He flinched but nodded. "I've spent weeks trying to understand what happened, what was real and what Marcella manufactured. The wolfsbane, the suppressants, the magic, how much of what I felt was genuine and how much was her manipulation. Does it matter?" "Yes, because if none of it was real, if I was just her puppet from the start, then maybe I'm not responsible for what I did to you." He met my eyes, and I saw the plea in them. "I need to know if I'm a monster or a victim." "You're both." The words came out harder than I intended. "Marcella manipulated you, dampened the bond between us, made her seem more compatible than she was, poisoned your perception. That's true. But you still made choices, Lucian. She didn't force you to reject me publicly. Didn't force you to keep me in the pack as a servant. Didn't force you to make me stand at your wedding." "I was trying to. To prove you made the right choice, to show everyone that I was less than her, to enjoy your victory." I stepped closer, and he actually retreated a step. "You were manipulated into not feeling the bond properly, but the cruelty, that was all you." "I know," his voice cracked. "I know, and I hate myself for it. I came here to apologize, to try to make amends." "There are no amends for what you did, no apology that makes it better." I felt my wolf surge inside me, stronger than ever, done with his excuses. "You want absolution, forgiveness. You're asking the wrong wolf. I'm not here to make you feel better about the choices you made." "Then why did you agree to meet?" "Because I wanted you to see what you tried to destroy, to understand what you lost." I let my wolf rise to the surface, let the power I'd discovered show in my eyes. "You called me weak, worthless, an embarrassment, and I believed you because I was drugged and suppressed and broken down systematically. But I was never those things. I was strong enough to survive you, strong enough to choose myself when everyone told me to be grateful for scraps. Strong enough to stand here now and look you in the eye without flinching." Lucian's face twisted with emotion, regret, shame, and underneath it all, a flash of the old arrogance. "You think you're better than me now? Because you found some northern alpha who coddles you? Because you've got these wolves convinced you're some kind of revolutionary? You're still the same Omega who—" "Don't," Titus's voice cut across the square like a blade. "Don't reduce what she's accomplished to find your own comfort. This doesn't concern you. Everything that concerns her concerns me. She's my mate." Titus moved to stand beside me, not in front of me, a distinction Lucian clearly noticed. "But more than that, she's a wolf who survived systematic abuse and chose to use that survival to help others. What have you done besides make excuses?" Lucian's composure cracked completely. You took her from me. You crashed my wedding, stole my... I was never yours to steal, I interrupted. And you're doing it again, making this about your loss instead of my suffering, making yourself the victim instead of taking responsibility. I am taking responsibility. That's why I'm here. Lucian's hands clenched into fists. But you're acting like I'm the only one who did something wrong. You ran off with a stranger. You didn't even try to fight for what we had. What we had was poisoned from the start, and I didn't run off. I was rescued from a situation that was killing me. My wolf pushed harder against my skin, demanding release. But you know what? You're right about one thing. I didn't fight. I accepted your rejection, your cruelty, your treatment of me as less than nothing. I made myself small and convenient and broken because that's what you wanted. I shifted then, letting my wolf emerge fully. The transformation was smooth, powerful, nothing like the painful struggle it used to be. I stood before him in my true form, not the small, undernourished creature he'd known, but a beta wolf, strong and healthy, with silver-white fur that caught the setting sun like snow on fire. But I'm not that wolf anymore, I said through the pack link, my voice clear and strong. So if you want to know who's responsible for what you've become, look in a mirror. And if you want to see what you lost, look at me. Lucian shifted too, his wolf larger than mine, darker, built for dominance. But there was uncertainty in his stance. You can't challenge me. You're not Omega, not weak, not yours. I circled him slowly, and the crowd fell silent. You made me believe I was nothing. Convince me otherwise, fight me, prove that you were right about me all along. I don't want to hurt you. Then you'll lose. I struck first, fast and low, using techniques Kira had drilled into me. Lucian blocked, but barely, his surprise evident. We clashed in the center of the square, wolves scattering to give us room. It wasn't a dominance fight. Those were formal, ritualized. This was raw, honest, a settling of accounts. Lucian was larger, stronger in raw power. But I was faster, angrier, fighting with the fury of someone who had nothing left to lose, because she'd already lost everything and rebuilt herself from ashes. I used his size against him, his expectation that I'd fight defensively. Drove him back with combinations he didn't expect. When he finally landed a solid hit that sent me sprawling, I rolled with it and came up teeth bared, more determined than before. Stay down, he growled through the link. You've made your point. Have I? I launched myself at him again, and this time I got my teeth around his throat. Not deep enough to kill, but firm enough to make the point. I could end this, could finish him if I wanted. But I didn't want him dead. I wanted him humbled. I released him and shifted back, standing over his prone wolf form in my human skin, breathing hard but victorious. I was never weak, Lucian. You just needed me to believe I was so you could feel strong. But strength isn't about dominance. It's about surviving what should have destroyed you and choosing to be better than those who tried to break you. He shifted back, blood on his throat from my teeth, his eyes wide with shock. How? Because I was never the problem, you were. I turned away from him, addressing the crowd. For every wolf who's been told they're too weak, too sensitive, too much or not enough, you're not. They're just afraid of what you'll become if you realize your own power. Iris started it, a single howl that pierced the evening air. Then others joined, Kira, the coalition wolves, even some of the Southern Territory visitors who'd been moved by what they'd witnessed. The sound built into a chorus, a celebration, an acknowledgement of something shifting in the very foundations of their world. Lucian stood slowly, his hand at his bleeding throat. I'm sorry, for all of it. I know it doesn't change anything, but I'm sorry. Good, be sorry, learn from it, be better. I looked at him one last time. And don't ever contact me again. This chapter is closed. He nodded, defeated, and walked away. I watched him go, this wolf who'd once held the power to destroy me with a word, now diminished and broken by his own choices. Titus was there immediately, pulling me into his arms. You were magnificent, fierce, perfect. I was angry, I admitted, adrenaline still singing through my veins. Is that bad? Anger can be righteous. You used yours to prove a point, not to cause unnecessary harm. That's strength, Frostine. He kissed my forehead gently. And you've shown every wolf here what's possible when you stop accepting the limitations others place on you. The crowd surrounded us, congratulations and respect flowing from wolves who'd seen me transform from victim to victor. But beneath the celebration, I felt something else. The weight of what I'd become. Not just for myself, but for all the wolves watching, hopping, wondering if they too could rise from the ashes of their own suppression. It's a lot of responsibility, I said quietly to Titus as the celebration continued around us. Being a symbol. Then don't be a symbol, just be you, that's enough. He smiled, fierce and proud. More than enough. As darkness fell and the celebration moved into the lodge, I stood in the square for a moment, looking at the place where I'd defeated my past. Where I'd proven to myself and everyone watching that I was never what they'd told me I was. I was Frostine, survivor, fighter, free wolf. And I was finally, truly home. Spring came to the mountains like a whispered promise, melting snow into rushing streams and coaxing green from the frozen earth. 3 months had passed since my confrontation with Lycan, and the world had shifted in ways both subtle and seismic. The Council's Reform Committee had begun its work in earnest, dismantling laws that enabled abuse and establishing new protocols for sanctuary and accountability. Iris had joined Titus's pack officially, along with 7 other wolves who'd found the courage to leave suppressive situations. The coalition grew weekly, territories declaring their commitment to genuine reform rather than empty promises. And Marcella faced trial. The evidence was overwhelming, testimonies, documents, the witch's confession in exchange for leniency. The council stripped her of all rank and exiled her from the territories entirely. Last I'd heard, she'd fled east, toward human cities where wolf law couldn't reach her. I didn't waste energy hopping for her suffering. Her exile was consequence enough. Lycan's pack had fractured in the aftermath. Some wolves left for other territories, unwilling to serve an alpha who'd enabled such cruelty through willful ignorance. Others stayed, hopping to rebuild something better. Lycan himself had stepped down as heir, his father appointing a younger brother to the position. I heard he'd gone north, to smaller territories where he might earn redemption through actual work rather than inherited privilege. I didn't think about him often anymore. That chapter was closed, the wounds healed into scars that reminded me where I'd been but no longer defined where I was going. Where I was going, as it turned out, was to a wedding. My wedding. The preparations had been Vera's joy and my bemusement. I'd never imagined myself as the type to care about flowers and music and the perfect dress. But there was something healing about planning something beautiful, something chosen, something that celebrated love instead of hierarchy. "Stop fidgeting," Kira commanded, adjusting the silver circlet that held my veil in place. "You're getting married, not going into combat. What if I trip? What if I forget my vows? What if you trust that everything will be perfect because it's yours?" Iris smiled at me from across the room, already dressed in her bridesmaid gown, a soft blue that made her dark hair shine, nothing like the hateful lilac I'd worn at Lycan's wedding. "This is your day, Frostine, your choice, your joy." The ceremony would take place in the village square, under open sky where the whole pack could witness and celebrate. But first, we'd gathered in the old cathedral at the mountain's edge, a building that had stood for centuries, built by wolves who'd sought sanctuary here long before Titus's time. It was a deliberate choice, a reclamation. The last time I'd stood in a cathedral, I'd been humiliated, forced to watch my supposed mate pledge himself to someone else. Today, I would stand in one and choose my own future. Vera bustled in, carrying my dress with reverent hands. It was nothing like traditional wedding gowns, no heavy brocade or restrictive corsets. Instead, it flowed like moonlight silver-white fabric that moved when I breathed, with embroidery that echoed the mountain peaks surrounding us. The sleeves were sheer, showing the scars on my arms that I no longer tried to hide. Proof of survival, badges of honor. When I was dressed, when the veil was arranged and the final touches complete, Vera's eyes filled with tears. "You look like yourself, strong and beautiful and free." "That's all I ever wanted to be," I whispered. The walk from the cathedral to the village was short but felt eternal. Pack members lined the path, some throwing flower petals, others simply offering smiles and respect. Children ran ahead, their laughter bright as bells. This was what pack should be: community, not hierarchy. Celebration, not competition. Titus waited in the center of the square, flanked by Marcus and Helena, alphas who'd become allies and friends. He wore formal attire that somehow made him look even more massive: black leather and silver fastenings, his hair bound back with a cord I'd woven myself during the long winter nights. When his eyes found me, the world narrowed to just us. The bond between us had grown over the months, fed by trust and choice and genuine partnership. It no longer scared me. It felt like coming home every single day. I walked toward him with my head high, no one giving me away because I'd never belonged to anyone else. This was my choice, my path, my future. "You're breathtaking," Titus murmured as I reached him, his voice rough with emotion. "You're not so bad yourself." I smiled, and he laughed, the sound carrying across the square and drawing answering laughter from the crowd. Alpha Marcus stepped forward to officiate, another deliberate choice. This wouldn't be presided over by council officials or ancient ritual keepers. Just a wolf who understood that love was about partnership, not possession. "We gather today not to bind two wolves by law or obligation," Marcus began, his voice carrying authority softened by genuine warmth, "but to witness and celebrate a choice freely made. Frostine and Titus have chosen each other, chosen to build something together, chosen to face whatever comes as partners and equals." The vows we'd written together were simple. No promises of obedience or submission, just commitment to honesty, respect, and standing together against whatever challenges arose. "I choose you," I said, my voice steady. "Not because fate demanded it, not because hierarchy requires it, but because you showed me what partnership could be. You gave me space to heal, strength to fight, and freedom to become who I was always meant to be. I choose you, today and every day after, as my mate and my equal." Titus's eyes shone with tears he didn't try to hide. "I choose you, not because I dreamed of you, not because some cosmic force declared us matched, but because you're the bravest wolf I've ever known. You survived what should have destroyed you and chose to use that survival to help others. You're my mate, my partner, my inspiration. I choose you, with everything I am and everything I'll become." Marcus smiled. "Then by the authority vested in me by absolutely no one except these two wolves who asked me to do this, I declare you partners in all things. You may seal this bond however you wish." Titus pulled me close, his kiss gentle despite his size, reverent despite his strength. The bond between us flared bright and certain, no longer one-sided or hesitant but fully realized. Two wolves choosing each other, completely and without reservation. The square erupted in celebration, howls and cheers and music starting up from somewhere in the crowd. Titus lifted me easily, spinning me around until I was dizzy with joy and laughter. "Mrs. Frostine," he said, grinning. "Just Frostine," I corrected. "I don't need your name to know who I am." "Perfect, my fierce, independent, absolutely perfect mate." The celebration lasted into the night, food and drink, and dancing under stars that seemed brighter than I'd ever seen them. Iris danced with Owen, both of them finding joy in new beginnings. Kira arm-wrestled visiting alphas and won every match. Vera told stories that made the children gasp and the adults laugh. And I stood with Titus, watching it all, marveling at how far I'd come from the broken wolf in the lilac dress. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his arm around my waist. "That I'm happy, genuinely, completely happy." I leaned into him. "And that I'm grateful, for everything that led here, even the painful parts, because they made me strong enough to choose this. No regrets. Only that I didn't find you sooner, but maybe I needed to be broken first, to appreciate what we're building." I looked up at him. "What about you? Any regrets about crashing that wedding and taking on a damaged Omega?" "You were never damaged, and you were never Omega." He kissed my forehead gently. "My only regret is that I didn't get there sooner, that you had to suffer as long as you did. But I survived, and surviving led me here. I gestured to the celebration, to the pack that had become home, to the life I'd built from ashes and choice. This is worth everything it took to get here. As midnight approached, we slipped away from the celebration, walking up the mountain trail to the clearing where Titus had first explained true mate bonds, where I'd first felt that terrifying spark of recognition and hope. The moon was full, painting everything silver. We shifted together, our wolves running through the forest with pure joy, chasing each other through trees and snow, alive and free and together. When we finally stopped, breathless and happy, I looked at the wolf beside me, massive and beautiful in his own fierce way. My mate, my choice, my home. "I love you," I said through the pack link. "I've loved you since the dreams started," he replied. "Since before I knew your name. But this, you choosing me freely, us building this together, this is better than any dream." We stayed there until dawn, two wolves who'd found each other against all odds and built something true from the wreckage of manipulation and pain. The sun rose over the mountains, painting the world gold and new. A fresh start, a chosen future, a love built not on fate or obligation, but on respect and partnership and the fierce determination to never let anyone make us small again. I was Frostine, not rejected mate or broken omega or symbol of revolution, though I'd been all those things. I was simply myself, strong, scarred, free, choosing my own path, loving my own mate, living my own life. And that, finally, was more than enough. It was everything. Thank you for reading Frostine and Titus's story. If this tale of survival, strength, and choosing yourself resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel for more stories about wolves who refuse to stay broken, love that's built on choice rather than fate, and the courage it takes to reclaim your power. Drop a comment below telling me which moment hit you hardest. Was it when Titus crashed the wedding? When Frostine defeated Lucian? Or when she finally chose herself? Your support means everything. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story about wolves who rise from the ashes. Until next time, choose yourself, choose your strength, choose your freedom, and I will see you in the next story.